Thinking about getting the Canon R5 Mark II? In this video, we'll dive deep into the top 5 things that I love about it and help you decide if it's worth upgrading from the original Canon R5. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. We talk about how to capture award-winning portrait and family documentary photos, which is why I focus so much on gear, from mirrorless setups to even how I use my iPhone for some amazing shots. Full disclosure, I'm deeply invested in Canon gear, so switching brands would cost me a lot. Getting rid of my lenses and buying all new gear from a different brand sounds super painful. So keep that in mind as I compare the R5 to the R5 Mark II. Now, I'm not going to be doing a full review here. We're only talking about the things that I find valuable as a portrait and family documentary photographer. That said, there's still a lot of annoying things about this camera, which is why I made an entire video about that, and I'll link to it at the end. Nevertheless, I found quite a few workarounds with various custom modes that largely mitigate some of those annoyances, and I'll be making another video soon that shows my entire menu setup and all the customizations, so stay tuned for that. Despite those frustrations, I've actually been warming up to this camera a lot lately. I recorded this video originally 2 weeks ago, but decided to redo it because it's been kind of growing on me a little bit. By the way, make sure to subscribe to the channel because I'm taking the R5 Mark II to Italy this week, where I'm going to do some portrait and cityscape photography. I'm also going to review a couple of new additions to my kit, including a tripod from Ulanzi, as well as the Insta360 Go 3S, and the Canon RF 10-20mm super wide angle lens. I'm really excited to see what this does with some architectural photography. So let's get into what I love, starting with what I call quality of life upgrades. First up is the menu system. The original R5 had one of the best menus in the business, and Canon made some subtle but nice improvements here. The categories are a little more organized, the colors are tweaked, and my favorite part is that they made it super easy to see why a setting is grayed out. No more guessing games, no more having to go to internet forums. If something is grayed out, it tells you what other setting you need to adjust, and you can do it super easily. I wish this were more automated, but it is a lot better than what it was before. Next up, let's talk about image review and playback after you've taken some photos. Something we rarely talk about is the process of deleting photos. They made a huge improvement here. You can delete an entire burst of shots in one go. No more having to delete each photo one by one. A couple weeks ago, I shot my nephew's football game and I was able to delete an entire scene of like 40 photos all at once from a single burst. Overall, this saves me a ton of time. I wish that they had a double delete function, which I talk about in my other video, and this is something that Sony has, but still, it's really nice to be able to delete an entire scene all at once. Another thing I appreciate is that when reviewing your shots, you're able to add a focusing dot to see exactly where the focus was. This is super helpful. So if I'm doing portraits, for example, I can see that I got it right on the eye and I can move on. I'm not having to take as many safety shots anymore, and it's saving me a ton of time. It's a small but super efficient feature that I think is really nice. The next quality of life upgrade is that they added information about how much storage space you have for both photos and videos, and it's right at the top of the LCD screen. This helps me avoid guessing how much room I have left on my SD cards, whereas previously I had to extrapolate the video amount based on how much I had left in terms of photos. So this is quite nice. Speaking of video, here's where we talk about my next few favorite features. In all honesty, I'm a novice when it comes to shooting video, so I love the addition of waveforms and I find it insanely helpful. Basically, this allows you to measure your exposure accurately in real time, which is super nice. I used to either under or overexpose video, and this makes things way more intuitive, especially compared to zebras or false color. Now, speaking of false color, isn't it annoying that you can't enable false color if View Assist is on, right? You have to toggle off View Assist in the menu before you can enable false color. And for what it's worth, View Assist is the thing that makes log footage appear normal. So this is something that you kind of want to have on all the time. This seems like an easy firmware update for them to do, but I also thought this in the Canon R6 Mark II, and they still haven't done it since then, so I'm not holding my hopes out. My next love on this camera is C-Log 2. Since I am a novice with videography, I was thrilled to see this included when the camera came out. This is supposed to be the easiest format to color grade, so I'm super excited to dive into it more with some videos from our upcoming trip to Florence. Number 4 in the things I love is speed, especially two numbers in particular, 120 and 30, as in being able to capture 120 frames per second while still recording sound and 30 frames per second while taking still photos. Now, I rarely need either of these speeds, but they're incredibly nice to have, especially 30 frames per second capturing still photos. I actually have this mapped to a toggle button, so I can hold down the depth of field preview button on the front, and I can go instantly from 5 frames per second, which is what I normally shoot, to 30 frames per second. And then when I depress that button, it goes away and goes right back to normal, and I love it. Now, I've harped on the Canon custom options a lot in my other video, but this is one of those things that they actually did right. If I think I have a fast moving moment that's about to happen, I can hold this button down and I can get enough photos for me to select the perfect one later. Now for the biggest improvement, the autofocus. It is significantly better than the original R5, and I mean really significant. For fast moving subjects like kids running around, it tracks them flawlessly. Even if they're moving behind someone or an object, it sticks on them and you have it the whole time you're holding the button down. The amount of keepers I'm getting right now is insane. I take a lot of photos of fast moving subjects, so this really is the most incredible tool for me to have. The original R5 autofocus was actually pretty good, but this is like someone put nitrous in it. So, should you upgrade? If you're shooting fast moving subjects like weddings, family documentary, wildlife, I'd say go for it. The autofocus alone makes this worth it. But if you're into landscape, cityscape, or static portraits, honestly, I don't think you're going to see much in terms of a difference. There are a few quality of life enhancements that I appreciate, but it may not be worth it to you. One other thing that I'll briefly touch on is that there are some reports that the dynamic range might actually be a little bit worse on the R5 Mark II. I'm personally not seeing it. In fact, I've actually been getting some incredible details that I never thought that I'd get out of the shadows. So the next big question is, if you're not already in the Canon ecosystem, would I recommend switching? And the answer, honestly, is probably not. I think there was a lot of hype about this camera, especially some big features that just didn't pan out. I knew early on from the rumor sites that it wouldn't have a global shutter, but I was really hoping for some other aspects, specifically improved flash sync speeds, and that just didn't happen. I was dreaming of something like 1/1250, but we're basically where we were with the original R5. So overall, I think people were a little bit underwhelmed because they expected some amazing advances rather than Canon merely catching up. Right now, Sony seems to be the one leading the innovation charge, and they're not looking back. On top of that, it seems like they truly listen to what their customers want, and they're putting out updates that reflect that. So in all honesty, if I were starting out today, I'd probably go with Sony. For those people that have Canon already, I think that the R5 Mark II is a really worthy upgrade. For me, the decision to switch would have been another like $15,000 to $20,000 worth of gear to buy, and that made the decision a lot easier to stick with Canon. But I think they did just enough to keep me in the Canon sphere and get excited about some of their newer features, especially that amazing autofocus. That said, despite all the time I've spent thinking about this camera and whether to stay with Canon or switch, I've truly come to appreciate that gear matters far less than skill and education. It took me a lot of years, but I eventually realized that my most growth occurred when I started seriously learning the craft through workshops, online courses, watching YouTube videos, and ultimately through deliberate practice with trial and a lot of error. So anyway, that's everything I love about the Canon R5 Mark II. Let me know in the comments what are the things that matter most to you. And if you want to know about the things that really annoy me about this camera, check out this video over here and you'll hear all about it. So if you found this video helpful, hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe for more content. Soon I'll be diving into my full menu setup and why I love double back button focus for documentary photography and how I actually programmed in a special oh shit cheat code button for those times where you're shooting flash and manual but need to rapidly switch into aperture priority so you don't miss a compelling moment, and then you can go right back into manual when you take your finger off that button. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.